If you worked as a teacher, firefighter, police officer, postal worker, or any state or federal job that didn't pay into Social Security, there's a very real chance the government owes you money right now. And I mean actual, already approved, already being paid out money, not some vague rumor floating around the internet. This isn't a scam email and it isn't clickbait. It comes from an actual law that was signed on January 5th, 2025, called the Social Security Fairness Act, and it fixed something that had been quietly draining retirement checks for millions of Americans for decades. Let me walk you through exactly what happened, who qualifies, how much money is actually involved, and what you need to do right now if you think this applies to you or someone in your family. For years, two obscure rules buried in Social Security law, called the Windfall Elimination Provision and the Government Pension Offset, people just called them WEP and GPO, quietly reduced or completely wiped out Social Security benefits for anyone who also received a pension from a job that didn't withhold Social Security taxes. Think about that for a second. If you spent 20 years as a police officer or a teacher in certain states, and then also worked a second job or a spouse's job where you did pay into Social Security, the government would turn around and slash the benefit you earned, sometimes by hundreds of dollars a month, sometimes almost entirely, just because you also had a public pension. Over 3.2 million people got caught in this. Teachers who spent their whole careers shaping kids' futures. Firefighters who ran into burning buildings. Police officers who patrolled the same streets you drive on every day. Federal employees under the old civil service retirement system. And even people who spent part of their career working for a foreign government's version of Social Security. All of them had their checks reduced by rules they often didn't even know existed until they applied for benefits and got a much smaller number than they expected. For decades, lawmakers talked about fixing this and nothing happened. Then in January 2025, it finally did. The Social Security Fairness Act completely repealed both WEP and GPO, and here's the part that matters most to you. It didn't just stop the reductions going forward. It made the fix retroactive all the way back to January 2024. That means if you were affected, you're not just getting a bigger check from now on. You're getting a lump sum payment covering everything you were shorted going back over a year. The Social Security Administration originally told the public this could take over a year to sort out because of how complicated some of these cases are. But they moved faster than anyone expected. Payments actually started going out on February 25th, 2025, and by the end of March, most people who were owed money had already received a one-time deposit straight into the bank account Social Security has on file for them. Then, starting in April, their regular monthly benefit went up permanently, reflecting the fact that WEP and GPO no longer apply at all. By the summer of 2025, the Social Security Administration had already sent out more than 3.1 million payments totaling over $17 billion, and they finished the vast majority of cases months ahead of their original schedule. Now here's a question you're probably asking. How much money are we actually talking about per person? The honest answer is, it varies a lot, and there's no single number that applies to everyone. It depends on your specific pension amount, how many years you worked in jobs covered by Social Security versus jobs that weren't, and your overall earnings history. For some people, the increase was relatively small, maybe an extra $50 or $100 a month. But for others, especially people who had significant government pensions and had their Social Security nearly wiped out entirely under the old rules, the increase has been over $1,000 every single month, on top of a retroactive lump sum that in some cases reached into the thousands of dollars. If you're a spouse or a widow or widower who is affected by the government pension offset specifically, this could be especially significant for you, because GPO often reduced spousal or survivor benefits dramatically, sometimes down to nothing at all, even when the surviving spouse desperately needed that income. So who exactly qualifies for this? You're likely affected if any of the following apply to you. You receive a pension from a state or local government job where you did not pay Social Security taxes. This includes many teachers, school employees, firefighters, and police officers depending on which state you worked in. since the rules vary state by state. You're a federal employee who retired under the old civil service retirement system before the newer federal employees' retirement system took over. You worked for a foreign government and received a pension based on work that wasn't covered by U.S. Social Security. Or you're the spouse, widow, or widower of someone who falls into any of those categories, and your own Social Security spousal or survivor benefit was reduced or eliminated because of their pension. If any of that sounds like you, or like your parents, your grandparents, or someone else in your family, especially if they're older and might not be online checking the news regularly, this is worth looking into today. Here's the good news about the process itself. For most people, you don't actually have to file any new application or fill out complicated paperwork. The Social Security Administration is applying these changes automatically for anyone who is already receiving reduced benefits due to WEP or GPO. If you're due money, it should already be showing up, or it may have already arrived, as a one-time payment in the bank account Social Security has on file, followed by a higher monthly amount going forward. But there's one important group of people who do need to take action, and that's anyone who, in the past, decided not to even apply for spousal or survivor benefits because they were told the government pension offset would wipe out the payment anyway. So what was the point? If you're in that situation, meaning you never applied because you assumed you'd get little or nothing, you need to actually go apply now, because the rules have changed, and you may be entitled to a real benefit that didn't exist for you before. The Social Security Administration will not automatically start these for people who never applied in the first place. So step 1, if you or a family member fits any of the categories I just described, check your bank account and your mail for a notice from Social Security about a benefit adjustment under the Fairness Act. Step 2, log into your online Social Security account at SSA.gov and look for updated benefit information. This is the fastest way to confirm whether an adjustment has already been made and to make sure your direct deposit and mailing information on file is current, because if that information is outdated, your payment could be delayed. Step 3, if you believe you're owed a retroactive payment and haven't received one yet, don't panic. Some cases are more complex and take longer to process automatically, but you can call Social Security directly at 800-772-1213, and you may also be able to schedule an in-person appointment at a local field office if your case needs additional review. Step 4, and this is the one people miss most often. If you or your spouse never applied for spousal or survivor benefits because you assumed the offset would eliminate them, go apply now, because that assumption is no longer true. It's also worth mentioning, this law does not change who's eligible for Social Security retirement benefits or disability benefits in general, and it doesn't affect people who were never subject to WEP or GPO in the first place, meaning, if you spent your entire career in jobs that did pay into Social Security, this particular change doesn't apply to you, though it's obviously still worth understanding if you have friends or family in public service careers. If there's one thing I want you to walk away with from this video, it's this. Millions of teachers, firefighters, police officers, and public servants spent decades believing they'd permanently lost part of the Social Security benefit they were entitled to, simply because of a technicality most people had never even heard of. That's no longer true. The law changed, the money is real, and in many cases it's already been paid out or is actively being processed right now. If this applies to you, don't leave it sitting there. Check your Social Security account today. Make sure your banking and mailing information is accurate. And if you were someone who gave up on applying for a spousal or survivor benefit years ago because you were told it wasn't worth it, go apply again, because the rules that stopped you no longer exist. If this video helped clarify what's actually going on, consider sharing it with a parent, a grandparent, or anyone you know who spent their career as a teacher, firefighter, or police officer, because there's a real chance they're one of the millions of people this directly affects, and they may not even know it yet.